Welcome, everybody. We're glad that you're here at Intuit Accountant's session of Future Proof Your Firm. We're going to be having a panel discussion and talking about a roadmap to modernization and growth for your accounting firm. Welcome. My name is Jim Buffington, and I lead advisory services here at Intuit Accountants. Next slide, please. Before I joined Intuit, a little over 20 years ago, I was a partner in an East Texas firm for about a dozen years. Mostly we practiced oil and gas taxation and did a lot of QuickBooks accounting. Absolutely love being here at Intuit. And my primary role is engaging with firms like yours to learn best practices. And then I get to share those out with the rest of our profession. Really love what I'm doing here at Intuit. But I'm not the star of the show. I'm going to be facilitating a panel discussion today. So let me introduce our first panelist, Caleb Jenkins. Next slide, please. Is a tax planning, business, and accounting leader at RLJ Financial Services in Northern California. Caleb has received many awards, but his favorites are QuickBooks Pro Advisor of the Year and 40 Under 40 in the accounting profession for 9 consecutive years. Okay, Caleb, you are going to age out of that award eventually. It has been Caleb's joy and privilege to give back to his community by serving on the Intuit ProConnect Customer Tax Council and the ADP Accountants Advisory Board. Caleb has had the honor to serve in numerous developing countries as an educator and QuickBooks consultant with the SALT Microfinance Program, working with folks who are in chronic poverty. Thank you for your service there, Caleb, and thank you for supporting our profession. Welcome to the panel today, Caleb.
I'm glad to be here. I'm excited for this conversation.
Great. And next, we have Derek Diston, who is the Vice President of Community at WriteWorks. Derek's an avid learner, and he has a deep passion for leadership coaching and process improvement, including coaching firms like yours on your journey to grow as modern firms. He's a leader of WriteWorks Community, which exists to elevate our accounting profession. He's responsible for strategic vision and growth across both the CPA Practice Advisor publication and the WriteWorks Academy. He is a former collegiate athlete, and as a father of three, he's still an athlete and enjoys coaching his kids' sports, running, and woodworking. Derek, thank you for your passion around the accounting community and for joining our panel today. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Jim. I'm excited to be here. This is a little bit of a change from going out for 5 mile runs with middle school athletes.
Great. We're glad you're here. And then our third panelist is Leah Hartman, who serves as a senior specialist on Intuit Accountants professional services team. Some of you may not know that Intuit Accountants has a professional services team. We do. Leah is a master of the Intuit platform, including helping accountants be successful with QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Online Accountant, online payroll, and all of those Intuit applications in the ecosystem. In her role, Leah delivers education and product training to our accountant partners and your clients. Thank you for joining us today, Leah, and being a part of our panel. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, hey, that is our introductions, and we have an awesome session discussion coming up. I do want to remind you that this session is going to be enormously valuable. It is not a CPE or IRS CE credit session, so don't worry about attendance or polling. We will have a few polls, but we do have some valuable resources down in the resource section of the Zoom. You can also engage with us in chat. You can clap using little responses with Zoom. So do engage with our panelists. You can ask questions, post those in the Q&A, and we will save time at the end of our panel discussion to review some of your questions. So thank you for being here today, and let's kick this off. Caleb, I'm going to go to you first. Your firm has definitely embraced a lot of changes, and maybe you could walk us through an example of one of your technology changes and maybe what you were doing before and maybe a little bit about what drove those changes, and then how has that technology change really helped your practice?
Yeah, so I might start with the first example, and we can go into other examples too, but this is a little bit older on our journey, but about 10, probably 10, 15 years ago, really started to embrace QuickBooks Online instead of QuickBooks Desktop with our clients. And that pivot was in relation to, or in connection with our change in our pricing models, which was going from reactive pricing to proactive pricing, which was front end billing for the services. And so both of those things, and then that really changed our nature of our client work. So it went from reactive client service, doing tax returns after the fact, doing QuickBooks cleanups after the fact, doing waiting for somebody to call us and say, hey, I need a something for a bank loan or whatever, to doing proactive tax planning, proactive tax strategy with a client. Just wrapped up a meeting this morning with a client that's probably 200% better than they were last year. And so definitely a situation right now that we were going to dive into a little bit more tax strategy with them. And that was a pre-planned meeting based on our change in our structure of our client work. So the using QuickBooks Online allowed us to be able to access our clients' data real time, be able to interact or connect with third-party apps, and change the whole workflow of the client experience. So utilizing third-party apps like Ramp and Dext for extraction, and then using tools like Keeper for month-end review and cleanup of the data, especially for intercompany transactions. So just a lot of changes that the world is rapidly changing, especially now with the adoption of AI. AI is significantly changing the nature of what we're doing, especially in communication, responsiveness with our clients. So we use tools like Lizio for our client communication, and I'm real excited that they're piloting some new AI tools in their product, so not having to copy paste data to external products to do stuff, to be able to speed up and utilize it for file naming conventions, and to take a bunch of other different details there, and to make it a better experience for our clients. So the before, it was really I mean, going back to 15 years, and our firm's been around 40 years. My dad started it 40 years ago. So for probably 25 of those years, was probably fair to call it a traditional firm that was like everybody else. There's still remnants of pieces that are that way. So, but we've adopted a lot of new technologies that have allowed us to change the nature of our work, to eliminate the silos that are inside of our firm, to reduce inefficiencies, to bring better collaboration in our firm experience, so that all of our team members can access what they need to be able to do the client work. And then ultimately, the end result is to increase client education, to increase the nature of clients' planning capabilities, to increase their profitability, and reduce taxes as much as possible. So that's, I guess I went more than just one example there, but
Yes, you definitely went over, but that's okay. We love your testimony. We love the journey that you're sharing with our profession. And it's a journey for all of us. I haven't met a firm yet that's actually arrived. So we're all in that process. But let me go back to where you started. And that was that shifting from reactive work to proactive work. And that required technology changes. So moving from QuickBooks Desktop up to QuickBooks Online. So you had access and visibility to the book so you could be more proactive about that. And moving your services from just the compliance that's required, but not necessarily desired by clients. Yeah, we got to do it, but that's not the stuff that they really cherish. I love when you said your client was 200% better than last year. Yay! As the leader of advisory services, that warms my heart that you're focused on the future, focused on their business outcomes. And that is awesome. I love that. And you went even further, but let me just pause and just say, Derek, as you engage with folks in community, is that common for people to update both their technology as well as a lot of their processes and their services at the same time?
I think in today's day and age, more so than ever, yes. Caleb mentioned 40 years with the firm, and for 25 of those years, we're a traditional firm where technology underpinned the work and really dictated what the work was, right? You would have had a software, or even prior to, software, Caleb could probably, nod his head to this. I'm sure work was done on paper. So there were workflows and processes that were sort of created and dictated by what that outcome needed to be. And as technology has changed and continues to, in an even more rapid fashion, change, those workflows go away. I mean, I'll use an example of 150 years ago, washing laundry. There was a washboard, there was a tub, there was soap, there were workflows that had to be done in order for those clothes to be cleaned, and then you would have to hang it up and dry and hope that it wasn't going to rain, et cetera, et cetera. Technology changes. You buy a washing machine, and now all of a sudden your process of doing laundry has changed. And it has, depending on who does the laundry in the house, they may argue about this. It has probably freed up time to do something else. So as technology evolves and as new software comes in and you adopt the processes that those softwares allow for, you have freedom to begin to tweak and continue to work on the business instead of necessarily in the business. And that allows people to not only evolve their practice and pick up new services and offer, new offerings as well. It allows them to then take that slack time to go back and re-examine the other processes and the workflows. So absolutely, long answer to a short question. Yes, as technology changes, processes change as well. And those workflows generally beget new, faster, more efficient ways of doing your business.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Derek. Leah, technology is changing so fast. Would love to hear from you. What are some of the new innovations from Intuit that you're most excited about? And maybe even touch on some of the automation and AI agents that are being rolled out within the platform. And how do you see those shaping the future of our profession?
Yeah, great question. I love talking to accounting firms on a daily basis and showing them all of these new cool features and tools that we started implementing into our products more recently. Specifically our online product, of course, and we've announced and launched the AI agents into our new online product, or not new online product, but new tools. And I love to consider them as, a part of being that proactive versus reactive work. And so using them as buddies, essentially, the ability to detect anomalies within our system. So like the accounting agent today has the ability to go in and see if there's been drastic changes of, hey, you have a significant amount of income that's come in from the last 3 months compared to what you're used to seeing. Maybe we should address or review it and make sure that the data is good and we don't have any duplications of work or income coming through. I really love the work that we've done with our bank feed enhancements and allowing the AI to assist you with identifying where transactions have come from. One of the biggest examples I love to give is I've got a transaction in my bank feed from, a pretty common company everyone knows and loves, Verizon. I don't know if love is the right word, but it lets you know, hey, this is a telecommunications company. And so that AI is kind of like doing the Googling on the background for you, allowing for you to be able to see, who it is. And so more of those uncommon vendors that may be more local to that particular business. Also gives the opportunity to do kind of like that Googling search in the background to see who could it possibly be without necessarily having to interrupt your client on a day-to-day or even hour-to-hour basis of figuring out where things have come from. I really also love the OCR functionality that we're starting to build more and more into the product. So being able to upload a PDF statement from a bank's website versus having to manually enter in those transactions, or even upload the CSV. I know that that's also another big one. You know, we used to only be able to import Excel spreadsheets, but now we can do statements and even more. And allowing QuickBooks to be able to help in those ways that we couldn't really before, or a third-party app was needed. And so I really love, those are some of the big ones. That's not all. We have a ton more included, but those are just some of the highlights I love to talk about when I'm talking to firms.
Yeah, thank you for that, Leah. And you touched on a couple of them, and let me just have you unpack that just a little bit more. You mentioned OCR, so I think what you're saying is that now QuickBooks Online can actually read a bank statement and tease out all that information into transactions that can then be fed through the bank feed. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we're also incorporating that into creating transactions like an invoice as well. If I want to just upload something, it will read it through and identify if it's a new transaction or a new customer or a new product or service. We're starting to be able to take that functionality and incorporate it throughout the product. So those are just a few examples of many.
Wow. And I think I heard you also say that QuickBooks Online can also go and fetch bank statements, actually get those from the bank so that our firms don't have to spend hours or days trying to retrieve those bank statements from their clients. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're working with financial institutions on a daily basis to actually get that data directly from them. So, for example, I bank with Chase, a pretty well-known big bank out there, and bank statements automatically get imported into my QuickBooks Online that I've connected to. So I don't have to go fetch those from my website. So it makes it a lot easier. I don't have to go ask myself for them.
Wow. Yes. Just those two sound like they would save an enormous amount of time, but we do know that our firms spend an enormous amount of time collecting information and trying to get that organized from our clients. Caleb, do those sound like they would be helpful in terms of saving time on the compliance end of the services?
Yeah, I mean, there's one that's been in the product for probably a year or so now that's it sounds so stupid, so small, whatever, but it is so amazing, and that is the statements that are fetched, the ending balance and the ending date automatically entered to start your next reconciliation. So, I mean, a lot of times now we can just, especially if we're doing a cleanup project where we need to go back and do 12 months of reconciliations, we can go and start the reconciliation with the ending balance entered, ending date entered, and then click next. And then if it's all entered from the bank feed, then 95 times out of 100, it's all verified for us with a difference of 0. We can proceed to end it and then jump in to start the next one with the ending balance and next date entered. So it's a click, 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 and we're pretty much through 12 months of reconciliations. Whereas previously we would have had to pull open the statement or go download the statement from the bank, open it up, find the ending amount, store it in our document management system, go enter that ending balance into QuickBooks, and then check off each transaction individually. So definitely a huge time saver on just that one little element that is happening there. And I've played with a little bit, have not used in for client application yet, but the statement extractor. So where you upload the bank statement and then extracts it, where it's primarily useful is for cases where there's not a bank feed integration, where you need, maybe it's a 6-year-old item that you've got to do a cleanup project for, and there isn't a bank feed capability for it, but you have statements for it. drop those statements in there and let it extract it so you can create those transactions automatically. I mean, very, very powerful use case for something like that. The others, one of the agents that I love that is surfacing information is in the area of fixed asset management. So maybe a client spent $4,000 on a new laptop or new computer or something, and probably should be added to the fixed assets. Well, going and finding that information and surfacing it through the agent to say, hey, let's move this to a fixed asset. Let's add it to your fixed asset schedule. So that way we can record your depreciation on a recurring basis for you through the fixed asset management module. So I think that's pretty cool. I think the invoice reminders inside of QuickBooks with the different tone language to the clients is really cool. I'm having a lot of fun with that with clients and et cetera. And it does create something where instead of having one template that gets mailed or sent out to all clients for all invoices where they just click delete, 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 delete because it's the same one they've seen 1,000 times. Now there's personality attached to it. And so now there is something where it seems like they spend a little bit more time to go send the message to their customers to remind them of the payment. So I think tools like that are introducing a lot of extra use case. And that's just what we've had for the last 6 months. I mean, the next 6 months will introduce all kinds of new tools and capabilities into the product as I can only imagine.
Yeah, I hear your excitement, your passion about technology. Thank you, Caleb. And great use cases and examples there. And as you mentioned, we've steadily seen more automation in the online platform, but now we have agents that can take all of those repetitive steps you just mentioned and begin to do those for us with the control that accountants need and want. So being able to kind of click through and um, give that AI agent permission to go and do those things, those 12 reconciliations. So great examples. Um, hey, Derek.
Hopefully
Oh,
those examples eliminate over time because hopefully we don't have to do any cleanup in 2 years from now. Hopefully the books are just all stayed up to date and current for all of our clients. I mean, that's kind of a dream world that we can all hope for. So.
yes, yes. Or if there is cleanup, that the anomaly agent, I think that's what it's called, actually is pulling those up and finding them and saying, hey, Caleb, here's something you might want to take action on or take a look at. Make that cleanup easier, is what it sounds like. Hey, Derek, let's jump back over to you. WriteWorks does a great job emphasizing the importance of community and peer-based communities. Uh, Talk a little bit about how those communities can help modern firms grow and share best practices and really continuously, because this is an ongoing process, continuously improve those firm operations.
Yeah, I think we're witnessing a little bit of it even right now in the chat. Um, we have some questions that have come in that are coming forth to other individuals. And really, when you think about it as human beings, we function best when we're in a group or when we have peers or others that we can rely on, right? We're not meant to be solitary creatures. When you have a community of like-minded individuals and or peers who are similar in the challenges that they're facing, you begin to help shortcut processes, right? You can learn from others' mistakes and you can have a place in which you feel comfortable, you feel safe and secure to ask the questions that every once in a while somebody will say, boy, I have a dumb question. I always, we've all heard something similar to this. Like, there are no dumb questions. The only dumb question is the one you don't ask. Well, part of the reason why we preface these conversations or these questions with it's a dumb question is you don't want to feel like you're nervous about asking the question. You don't want to feel as if you don't know something. But the fact is, by asking a question, you don't know it. If you have people who can support you through discovering the answer for that question, you are making yourself smarter. Obviously, you're finding an answer to something. Or you're solving a problem that you've got in front of you that needs a solution. And you're doing it in a place where you then feel safe. It creates a flywheel effect. It then allows other people to feel safe to ask their questions in which you might be able to contribute an answer to. It creates shared knowledge. It creates that common network of solutions, of answers, of anything that you need to draw from. And that in turn leads to the ability to innovate and the ability to be agile in that innovation. You may not be the first person to adopt a new third-party platform or a third-party product. Caleb mentioned a couple before, but you may be looking at it rather than just looking at the literature and trying to do your own searching or even using an AI agent to search for this stuff. It's so much better when you can ask people who are in a similar situation and say, I would love to try this. Does it work with these software that I have? And then you begin to shorten the time of adoption, shorten your time for your team to form, storm, norm, and perform with those softwares or processes. And again, it's back to this idea of technology and evolution. It allows you to faster and faster and faster iterate and innovate. And we can talk about this here in a little bit. I'm sure we'll get into it. But by doing so, you keep yourself fresh. You allow yourself to offer more services to your clients. So you have more of those 200% clients that Caleb mentioned before. And sure, you could get there on your own, but life is so much better when you're doing it with someone else.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. Yeah, community is so important. As Caleb mentioned earlier, updating pricing and processes and technology. There's so many great experiences that other firms have already gone through on their journey. And so tapping into those is super valuable. Um, I got a couple questions in here, and we will have some time for Q&A, and I'm going to add those questions to the end here. But if you got other questions, do throw those in the chat or the Q&A, and we will get to those. Thank you for those. Caleb, one of the common challenges that firms have is they have application bloat. So what is your firm's process for reviewing and consolidating applications to maintain your productivity? And then kind of a second build on that question is, are you a fan of best of breed applications or more of an all-in-one type platform?
That's a challenging question. So I would dream for an all-in-one solution, but ultimately, our experience has been to use best of breed because you can get better products that solve certain niche cases that we're looking for with our clients or for our operation in a certain instance. So um, eventually, I mean, with AI agents and future, hopefully there gets to a better consolidation of products down the road in the future. For a period of time, though, it probably will be a little bit of a rocky road, in my opinion, because there will be 7 apps that you utilize that are best of breed in one area that start adding modules or capabilities that do the same thing that 7 of your other applications do. And so eventually you have to decide at what point does this one app that we're using better served by combining it together with the other app that now services that area. So a core example of that would be, say, in the area of Keeper with our month-end review. So it's a great product that's, I would say, does a really good thing, and it has task management for the month-end close. And so at what point there's a big overlap there with your practice management system if you have a separate practice management product. But do you use your practice management product for managing your monthly bookkeeping process or Keeper for that? Well, ultimately Keeper is what we chose for the monthly bookkeeping process because it has a lot more intricate details there. Will it ever replace our practice management product? Probably not. But so there's a period of time where there's a little bit of overlap between your products. Now, how do we decide which product to use? A lot of it, in my opinion, is kind of 3 or 4 layers. One is, what is the product today? And I try to go deep on the product as to understand what is the thing that they're doing today, and then looking at what they've shipped in their product releases in the last 12 months, particularly the last 6 months, because that gives me an indication as to the future of the product roadmap for where they're going. And I want to then understand, if I can, what their product roadmap is for the next 6 to 12 months, if they're open to sharing it. And then the next thing is just for understanding, what's the vision of the product for 3 to 5 years from now. Now, a lot of times everybody promises the world and never accomplishes that in the 3 to 5 years, but that tells me which direction are they headed. Are they headed towards this all-in-one solution, or are they headed towards a whole different area that is solving a different use case that I haven't even thought about yet? So I like to understand that, because if I've got two very similar products and one of them's direction is headed this way and another one's headed this way, or maybe this one is our traditional product that's got huge amounts of market share, but they've really shipped really hardly nothing in the last 12 months. And we've got a newer application here that is rapidly innovating, kicking out new product releases on a weekly basis, or 3 or 4 product releases on a weekly basis, and they're really great product releases. Like that's a product that I'm going to spend a little bit more time looking at because of the future development cycle that they're going to have. I'm also looking at what's their funding sources. Can they exist into the future? And then I'm also looking at their security, because I'm very concerned about security of applications, trying to understand what their nature of their security policies are. Are they SOC 2 Type 2 compliant? Are they, and then just looking a little bit more at some of those features. So that's kind of a basic nature, but I think for a period of time, there is still going to be a little bit of app bloat, and there's components of that where I think we'll go through cycles, just like we have historically, of we'll have an app increase time period and then we'll have an app decrease, because there's a couple apps that consolidate or start doing the same thing. And then there's a new app increase cycle where we'll add 3 to 5 new apps, and then maybe later we can decrease again. But there's new services that pop up. Like there's a lot of things we're doing today that we weren't doing 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And sometimes you need a product to support that service. So it's hard to answer specifically. I mean, again, I think I'd love for there to be an all-in-one, but unfortunately, I don't see it existing today.
Yeah, great response. And thank you, Caleb, both for engaging with companies like Intuit, like RightWorks, in order to help us improve our offerings. Yeah, I think we're still a ways off from all-in-one solution. I think accountants, tax firms have an enormous number of applications today. Can we trim it down? Probably some. But yeah, we're still a long way from an all-in-one. But the more that we can fit into that all-in-one platform, I think the more efficient we can be. And like you mentioned, engaging with those technology vendors, being that close partner with them, really helps you shape that roadmap. So we appreciate everything you've done, and I know you've been a great partner with Intuit on lots of things. Specifically, I've worked with you on Intuit Tax Advisor. I know there have been other offerings that you've made an enormous contribution. So thank you there. Leah, we're talking about a lot of technology changes and how fast things are moving. Maybe you could share with our audience a little bit about how Intuit helps accounting professionals stay informed about all these changes, and maybe some of the resources that are available to them, especially regarding new platforms and AI tools. And maybe also just touch on, there was a question about how often some of the interfaces change in QuickBooks Online, and how much that sort of throws them off. And maybe you could address that too while you're talking about education.
Yeah, education's huge, and staying up to date can be so overwhelming. Even just if we're talking about a singular product, right? Intuit, we have so many, and it's so hard. I cannot emphasize enough to utilize our firmofthefuture.com website, which I can put the link or someone else can put it in the chat here in just a minute. But firmofthefuture.com is a great resource. We not only do we have folks that work at Intuit who write blogs and updates and articles about what's going on in our product, but we also have practitioners like the Caleb's of the world who are also inputting their own like thoughts and processes on how to utilize our tools, and just really great thought leadership as well on how to become more successful. To put a little bit of a shameless plug in there, there's also the In the Know, which is a special section of what's new in our Firm of the Future site. I used to actually host those on a monthly basis, and so it's very near and dear to my heart because it's designed for accounting firms to get just that. It's a monthly webinar that we do that does actually offer CPE credit if you're interested, but you can sign up through the website under the What's New section of the it's called What's New. Anyhow, really great. We also do monthly blog articles in there that also helps kind of just, let you know what's going on as far as updates go. Now, as far as constant enhancements or updates that we do inside of our online product, I think what's happening right now is we did announce like July 1st that we're making a pretty huge push / change to our user interface to QuickBooks Online at a pretty large scale. And I do believe that sometime at the end of this month is when we're going to be officially making that change to permanently have that updated user interface, and folks can kind of still switch back and forth between the two. So that could be super confusing. I would just like to say that if you are or are aware of that button that you can click that allows you to switch back and forth between the old interface and the new one, it switches for everybody, even if your clients have access to that company. So just keep that in mind, that if you're doing it or if your client's doing it, it's changing for everybody. But as far as updates go, we don't typically make big user interface updates or changes every so often, but we are constantly modifying and making small enhancements. I'd probably say on a 4 to 5 week cycle, where we're constantly making sure that like bug fixes are gone through, or we're enhancing the workflow processes from the feedback that we're constantly getting from folks like yourselves. And so if there is a really big drastic change that happens, like please give us that feedback and let us know in the gear icon of QuickBooks Online. It's really important that we hear from you and you can tell us, but typically smaller changes happen on like a 4 to 5 week cycle, but big changes, I haven't seen a user interface update like this in quite a long time. So I know it's kind of shocking and drastic, but this should be the big one for the year for quite some time. I don't make the rules, so I don't actually know for sure, but I think I addressed all the questions. Let me know if I didn't, Jim.
Yeah, I think you touched on so many good ones. Did you mention Intuit Connect?
No, I didn't, but we do have some really cool stuff coming. So if you can join, please go. It's October 27th through the 29th at the Aria in Las Vegas. I hope I get to go, but hope to see everyone there too.
Yeah, always good to engage face to face, and there's usually some big product announcements there too. But you touched on so many good ones for folks to stay engaged. Thank you for that. Derek, hey, we've been talking a lot about technology, about access, and many of our tax and accounting firms still do rely on desktop applications, maybe for their tax, maybe for a few other things. Can you talk a little bit about maybe how RightWorks hosting solution complements those browser-based cloud applications, and how does hosting really help provide firms with that single view experience of managing desktop and cloud applications?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and it's a meat and potatoes type question for me because I got a good answer for this. So obviously we live in a world today where we have a lot of, as you mentioned, traditional desktop applications or localized applications that you have to run on your machine, perhaps on a server. And then you have your browser-based or SaaS or cloud-based applications as well. So the RightWorks cloud hosting, and cloud premier solution allow all of those to exist behind a single pane of glass, a single place that you can log into and have access to all of your applications, no matter where you are. If you've got your laptop with you, you have access to those applications from anywhere. It is behind a secure login. It is behind best-in-class, enterprise-grade security and infrastructure that is maintaining all of that. And you then have, it's essentially an easy button. And I like to say ease can come from two forms. It can either be the path of least resistance, which generally we don't want to go down, or it can be from efficiency, right? RightWorks has been doing this for 20 plus years. We like to say we were cloud before cloud was cool. What we have created is that single place for the firm to be able to access not only all of their applications, but all of their data. And it is the same for every single user across the firm, meaning my experience, if I sit down to log in, is going to be the same as Caleb's experience if he and I were working in the same firm. Now, we have different entitlements to the different applications to which we need to use. But on login, we're experiencing the same thing. Everybody in the firm is now experiencing the same login. You have a shared common understanding. You can share those best practices of, oh, I bookmarked this to go here. Here's where you create those bookmarks. You're able to go there. You also have with RightWorks Cloud Protect, you have the onboarding and offboarding for your SaaS applications for access for employees, meaning I now have a single place within my hosting portal where when someone either needs to be onboarded or offboarded, all of those SaaS applications, all of those browser-based applications that I have a single button that I can click to give access or deny access for all of those. So there's no more having to remember, I gave Caleb the QBO login information for this company and that company and that company, and also the login. So I think Caleb mentioned Dext and Ramp and Liscio as well. I don't have to remember all that. I have a single button that I can press. As your firm continues to grow and you adopt, again, new processes that allow you to bring on more clients, you're going to need to grow and onboard more employees. You have a single place to be able to do that at that point. So it just takes this disparate system of applications and access, and it layers it all behind a single pane of glass, complete with best-in-class security.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. And hey, this is a great time, probably even a little late, to launch our first polling question. So let me put that out there and log there. Again, this is not for CPE credit, but we would love to hear from you. What is your community of choice? Do you have a preference? Just log that in there. We're going to keep going with our discussion, but you can respond to that, and then we will post those results when we close out that poll. Caleb, let's jump back to you and reflecting on your journey. How has the peer community really supported your firm's transformation and really growing as a modern firm? And what are some community groups that really helped you excel in your firm?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple answer. I wouldn't be who I am today without the community. So being able to go to conferences and go up to the thought leaders that are in the space after their presentations. I mean, when I was 17 and 18, going to conferences and being able to go to people like Joe Woodard and walk up to him as a nobody and say, hey, I enjoyed your session. Can I grab a photo, whatever? And then ask a question of him. And then him remembering who I am a year later at the next conference, like that's powerful. And the ability to draw a connection and ideas, and that creates instantaneous ability to ask your questions, to get answers to whatever your problems you're facing. So there's a conference layer that I would say, which Scaling New Heights, QuickBooks Connect, now Intuit Connect, I would say are two of the core conferences, and then typically I would layer a third one into there. Then there would be a second element of more private communities. Actually, before I get to that, there was public communities, which is like X and LinkedIn, the old Twitter and LinkedIn. I've drawn so much from being able to interface and collaborate with individuals through Twitter posts and through LinkedIn conversations and such. And I've gained so much, especially through the early part of COVID, when tax Twitter really popped up and became popular. There was a lot of great collaboration community through Twitter at the time. The private communities are groups like the old RootWorks, that's now part of the RightWorks community. That is a great center that we've drawn a lot from. Then others like Woodard groups, whatever, and Woodard membership. I've gained tremendous amounts of collaboration and with education and tools and resources through both of those products. There's other communities too, smaller communities that I draw from. My biggest problem is I don't have enough time in the day to invest in all the different communities that exist to be able to learn everything that I should be able to learn from them. But again, I wouldn't be who I am today without others. One of the things you mentioned previously was about changes in business model. One of the things that, and I think Derek, you touched on this, but one of the changes that you go through when you are involved in community is maybe you have a particular fear about changing a business model or changing your pricing structure, or maybe it's about adopting a new technology, and having the ability to post a question or ask a question in a live event or in a webinar event, and to be able to collaborate with others who have gone before you and done that exact thing, and for them to say, here's what happened, and maybe it's your fear of raising your prices 50% or something to change your business model. Well, most people will have tremendous fear about that certain thing. Am I going to lose my business? Is it all going to fall apart? Whatever. But being able to ask that to somebody and have somebody say, no, I mean, you can't predict necessarily, but almost every case historically, you do lose some clients. Your revenue just about always stays flat or maybe goes up, and you have a whole lot better experience working with your clients and being able to invest a lot deeper relationship with your clients. So, but having the ability to have somebody talk you through that, walk through your communications that you're going to send out to your client about it, those types of things are tremendous in a community.
Awesome. Yeah, those are, I think, all great communities, great influencers that you mentioned, Caleb, and thank you for being an influencer and also sharing your journey. Things like asking about price increases, that is one of the toughest things. A lot of our firm owners are scared to do that. But as you mentioned, when you talk to somebody who's been through that journey, and I know I've talked to hundreds, literally every one of them says, I would never, ever, ever go back to the old way of doing.
Yeah.
And that's being on the other side of the chasm. So that perspective is super helpful. Hey, listen, this is a great discussion. We've actually had some questions from our audience, and I want to make sure that we are true and give them some time to voice those. So I'm going to go through a few of the questions that I teased out of our chat and our Q&A, and I'm going to kind of point these at a couple of different folks. There was a question about which financial institutions have the level of online banking and the bank fetching. I think we got a link in the chat. So if you were interested in that, make sure you copy that link there. So that one, hopefully we answered that. Leah, I'm going to point this one to you. Hey, somebody asked, what's the difference between smart or rules-based automation and an AI agent's process? Maybe you could provide some insight there, Leah.
Yeah, it's a great question, honestly. And I think that the best way to think about it is think of the AI agents as in the background already working for you now. Whereas with rules, you have the opportunity to tell QuickBooks, this is what I want you to do based on the conditions that you've set. and it is specific to each QuickBooks Online subscription that your client is using. And so the AI agent is always going to be in the background working, trying to help identify what something could be categorized as. More specifically, we're talking like about an actual connection in our bank feeds. Like if you have a client who has a bank account connected to QuickBooks Online already, and you're looking at the transactions that haven't posted yet to the general ledger, but you're trying to figure out, how do I want to categorize it? The AI agents are in the background helping to address, hey, based on the description of the bank statement that we've downloaded, we think it should be this. Or based on the categorization history of what you've identified it in the past, this is what it should be moving forward. But you can always say, I want you to categorize it this specific way based on the rule that you create or your client creates, depending on who's the one doing the work. And so rules will always take precedence over AI because that is something that you created, again, or your client created. That will always take precedence. So if you don't want the AI to help, or if you don't want it to do something, create a rule.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah. And yes, Intuit's principles have really been shaped by accountants, and that is you want transparency, you want to understand why AI is doing something, and you want control over whether or not it should move forward. So super, super helpful. This next one I'm going to point towards Caleb. We had a question that Intuit Tax Advisor is only for creating plans for individuals. Can you speak to using it for creating business tax plans?
Yeah, so as far as I know, unless I missed something, you can't run the plan directly on a C corporation or an S corporation, but you do it through the individual tax account. So you sync your individual tax return into Tax Advisor, and then you can, which has the elements of your S corp and your partnership and your sole proprietorship embedded into your item there. And then you can do your tax projections from there, and then you can do your tax planning, tax strategies on there, which your tax strategies involve maybe some C corporations, maybe a lot of other tax strategies that can be implemented. So most tax planning, in my experience, happens at the individual level, not at the business level. Now, it utilizes the business components in order to do the tax planning, but the tax planning is the ultimate taxpayer at the end of the day is generally the individual. And so the individual is the one who needs the products to be able to do the tax planning. Again, the source of it may be from your business, but the end result is through the individual. So Intuit Tax Advisor is a great product that keeps getting better and better. Every time I play with it and use it, it's like, oh wow, that I mean, I kind of forgot about utilizing it for this, or I didn't think that they had this yet, or I've wanted them to do this. And so definitely check it out if you're using Intuit ProConnect Tax or Intuit Lacerte Tax. The great thing is that it's embedded in your tax product now, so there's no separate cost. So play with it, use it as you wish, and it's definitely a great tool, and I'm definitely utilizing it a lot this cycle as we go through it into it, or I mean, not going through it. Well, I guess it's going through into it, but going through tax projections and planning with our clients as we head towards year end.
I think that's a great answer. Thank you, Caleb. And yes, we are seeing so much more use of Intuit Tax Advisor. I heard a number the other day, like 1,300 new plans a day with Intuit Tax Advisor. So I think you explained it great. I'm not going to add anything to it. We got another question here, and I'm going to point this one to Leah. Is Intuit going to abandon desktop tax programs like Lacerte and ProSeries and only support online programs like ProConnect going forward? And then there's also kind of something about like they're doing with QuickBooks Desktop for QuickBooks Online. So Leah, maybe you could take that in our last like 2 minutes here.
Yeah, it's a question I get a lot. And I would just love to set the ground here. Desktop, whether it's tax or QuickBooks, is not going away. That is Intuit's current stance on our product. Now, that does not mean that we're not selling to new customers unless it's QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise, for example, since the QuickBooks question came into that. A lot of our time, money, resources, and like research and development is getting pushed into the online world. That does not mean that we're getting rid of our desktop products completely altogether. I have not heard any changes around our tax products at this time. So obviously that's where we're at right now. You can still purchase QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise, but we're not, but that's, you know, for new customers, we're moving towards the cloud. But those options are still available.
Yeah, great. Yes, well, certain Pro Series are not going anywhere. We do see the overwhelming majority of new folks coming in the door choosing online solutions and just starting practices in the cloud. And so that is where a lot of the discussion and marketing and development is going. So, hey, listen, we are just about at time here, and I just want to say thank you so much to our panelists for generously sharing. Derek, Caleb, Leah, really, really appreciate you sharing from your journeys. And for everybody attending today, thank you so much for participating and being a really engaged crowd there in chat. And we hope that you have a fantastic day, and we appreciate you as customers.